Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Against the Fence. This is the Fan Cam, where the opportunity where we speak to you guys, the fans, after a UFC pay-per-view event, and we get your thoughts and feelings on the night of fights. And today, we're joined with Preston from the Guys Podcast. Preston, how are you doing, my man? What's the time where you are?
Oh, it is just after 1. It's 1:20 here, so we're on the East Coast out here.
Oh, lucky. It is literally something past 6. 20 past 6 in the morning over here in the UK. And I reckon we should probably just dive straight into this main card. We were literally just talking off air about how crazy it was. I mean, you only got, 2 to 3 decisions in this whole card. Mate, where do we begin? Where do we begin? I guess we should probably start off by talking about the main event, okay? Alex Pereira picking off Israel Adesanya in the 5th round. Who did you have winning this fight?
I had Adesanya by knockout. I thought he might come out more aggressive. Earlier in the week, I had stated that I didn't think there was a UFC fighter that had ever had as much at stake in this fight than Israel Adesanya had.
Yeah.
Not only did he have the belt on the line, he had his record in the middleweight division on the line. And then he also had his pride on the line because obviously he's been knocked out by this guy before. So
yeah.
I was a little disappointed to see Izzy get knocked out or, finished in that 5th round. Who'd you guys have?
Personally, I went Pereira. Do you know what? Strangely enough, I actually went Pereira decision in this because I felt that perhaps there would be shades. I was expecting a tentative Izzy. And I was expecting Pereira to have small little moments in, rounds like 1 and 3 where you could potentially score him based on striking. But as the fight got on, I scored the first round to Izzy. I thought second round was really close. I could have gone to Pereira potentially. I felt that Izzy won the 3rd and 4th, and then I think it was his for the taking almost to a decision. Would you agree on that?
I definitely agree. I had it 3-1 going into that 5th round. I thought that he should have played it safe. That whole fight, it seemed like Pereira was dominating at least the distance. He was always the one going forward, pushing Izzy into the fence. So I don't think Izzy did a really good job at keeping his distance. One thing I will say that I did kind of key on in earlier was we were going to see who was the better wrestler in this matchup because we both know how good of a striker they are. And we've never seen Izzy even. I believe they said that was his first takedown in the UFC ever that he got today.
Yeah.
So
I joked about it. I did a breakdown show earlier in the week, and I said, are we going to see Israel become a Division 1 wrestler? And soon enough, we saw him clinch up. We looked for takedowns, and it was quite surprising. And I was saying to the guys during the fight, if Izzy makes this a wrestling affair, he's definitely not going to be winning any fans in this. And I think a lot of people will slate him because of it. On the flip side, I've said previous that I would like to see something else from Izzy's game, because this is mixed martial arts after all. And, I wouldn't have been, in a way, I wouldn't be surprised if he wanted to take that route. But look, soon enough, we got the TKO victory for Alex Pereira in the end. And do you think it's right to run it back?
Oh, absolutely. I didn't think that Pereira really deserved the fight anyways. I mean, I know that it made for a great storyline, but I think 2 fights into the UFC, and we saw that experience that was on Izzy's side really take over in a lot of those rounds, and especially when it came to the wrestling. I kind of made the comparison between American football and rugby where they're similar, but they're 2 still completely different sports where with kickboxing and MMA, Izzy's just had that experience with wrestlers. So I would like to see him run it back. It does make it a little weird now that that's the 3rd time that he's lost to him. But I mean, those 2 other losses being in kickboxing.
You can't.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah. You almost can't. You obviously can reference them, but you can't, take that on board because if there were mixed martial arts fights, then you'd be like, oh, well, obviously we're not going to run this back a 4th time. But I think you just have to, purely because obviously the discipline is a completely different world. Um, yeah, I think that the TKO, late TKO, was very surprising from Pereira. If we do run it back though, who do you think will take it?
I think the bigger question is, do we think that Pereira can continuously make weight at this division? I mean,
Yeah, I said
he was
that
the
at the end.
he was the last man to the scale with 5 minutes left to spare, and and I think we saw some of that exhaustion really coming out on him in
Hmm.
this round or in the later rounds. I mean, he did end up getting the finish. He's still a big guy, so I mean, if he can sling those sledgehammers around, he can still put some damage down. But I mean, if they run it back, I would like to see Izzy work on his wrestling a lot more. I feel like if he can make use of that wrestling more and deeper into the fight, then he could have pulled that victory out. But I mean, standing up, it's just not good for him. I mean, he needs to learn that he can't stand up versus Alex Pereira. He just can't win that fight.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, maybe would be a safer option for Izzy, especially if he wants to secure the win and get that belt back. I don't know about you. What did you make of Izzy's entrance though? He do you not think he didn't really look the same walking out?
I mean, I guess every fighter kind of suffers from those like pre-fight jitters, and especially when, like I said, he's got everything that's at stake. I mean, he has everything to lose in this fight. So I'm sure all those thoughts were running through his head. I mean, Izzy's a professional. I don't think that, the pre-fight jitters or anything had to do with his performance tonight. I think he went out there and fought a really good fight and just
Mm,
kind of got caught there at the end. So, I mean, as far as his entrance goes, you know, normally he is a bit more energetic coming out. I think that just speaks to how seriously he was taking this fight. So maybe next time he comes out and we see a more relaxed Izzy, especially if he's not the one with the belt on the line, he
mm,
doesn't have as much at stake as
true.
maybe Pereira does in the next fight.
Mm. Yeah, true. Absolutely. Less pressure on his shoulders, and for sure, it will allow him to maybe enjoy it a little bit more in there. But I guess we should probably move on and talk about the co-main event. Whaley Zhang picking up the second round submission against Carla Esparza,
Right.
and a lot of people, we're counting Carla out in this fight. Let's be honest. Were you one of those?
I was definitely one of those. Yes, not by submission though. That was
Yeah,
definitely surprising.
for sure, for sure. But
I,
go on, go for it.
I would have, yeah, like I had Whaley by knockout and early.
Mm.
Um, I had no idea that she would be reversing those positions on the ground and really taking it to Carla. I mean, what are we going to see next from Whaley? I mean, I think that's a great question as
I
well. I mean,
know. I
that's
was going to ask
I
it.
mean, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to run through names of the division. I mean, I guess there's always Rose, um, but as far as her game looks very complete now. I mean, because Carla would have been my sort of beacon of grappling at that division, and Wei Lee ran right through it like it was nothing. So I'm not sure who's next for her.
Would you perhaps suggest that maybe Amanda Lemos is next?
Yeah, I mean, she did look good. She did look good in that fight.
And
I mean, on that
how do you see that one going?
I see it being a little bit more of a striking matchup. I mean, obviously Lemos has got hands. Obviously Wei Lee's got hands. I still think Wei Lee's got the experience. I mean, just off at face value, I would probably still take Wei Lee in that fight just because of
Yeah.
that experience. I mean, I think
Yeah.
she's probably sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, I was just going to agree with you. And I feel personally that perhaps the speed of Whaley favors her against someone like Lemos, who's be a little bit flat footed, look to kind of land that piston of a right hand that she's got. And also the grappling as well, because we're
Hmm.
starting to, we're seeing more and more of it in Whaley's game because she's been working extensively with Henry Cejudo. Um, you know, I, I'd take Whaley to be honest, and I kind of like
Yeah.
Lemos. I think she's a good competitor in this division.
Hmm.
I'm gonna throw something at you. It's something that I said in the watch along. If Whaley beats Lemos in the next fight, and you look at the rest of the division, she's a lot of girls she's already fought. Do you see her potentially challenging Valentina Shevchenko? If Valentina, we don't know what's next for her. If she obviously gets past the next bout that she's going to take.
Anytime that we can find more competitors for Valentina, I'm all in favor of that because it seems like she's always clearing house at that division. I mean, anybody that's not named Amanda Nunes is always going to have a tough time with Valentina Shevchenko. And I think stylistically, that fight would be a lot of fun, especially because she's got a little bit of size on Whaley. So that grappling might be kind of nullified in that sense. So we would get to see a bit of more of a striking match there. And in that case, I would still probably pick Valentina just because it's hard to go against Valentina. She's a tough outing for sure.
Yeah, I gotta agree. And again, Valentina is also somebody who's been showing off her grappling a little bit more in her fights as well. Yeah, it's gonna be that'd be very intriguing. I hope it happens down the line. What was your fight of the night then?
Oh, it had to have been Poirier versus Chandler. I mean, that first round to me might be round of the year. That was crazy and insane. I mean, the back and forth. I still had Poirier winning that first round. It seemed like, and mostly because he was the one getting the better matchups at the end of the round. So I think it was a little bit of recency bias on that. But yeah, Poirier. And what about the submission? I mean, taking his back and Poirier when he's on your back is always is a bad day for anybody. I had a lot of people that were trying to tell me that Chandler was going to win the fight. Chandler's just a little bit wild for me. I think that Poirier was going to know that going into it, and he was going to play it just a little bit more safe than he usually does, kind of work on his defense. Yep. And that really helped him out later in the fight, and I think that's what ended up giving him that edge over Chandler in that third round.
Yeah, what would you say would be next for Dustin Poirier? Because it's almost hard to decide.
If I was Poirier, I would sit on my ass and I would wait until after the Islam Volkanovski fight. Just because you're going to put it, I think that he's always got a claim for a title fight. I mean, just because of who he is and his name, and he's not lost a non-title fight since 2016. So if I'm Poirier, I'm sitting on my ass and making the UFC, have me as up next for whoever wins that fight.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I agree with you because, I mean, trying to pick a matchup for him was quite difficult for us, to be honest. It was just like, well, does a fight with Dariush really excite him? Does a fight with potentially Rafael Fiziev excite him? I mean, I guess it would be. I think it would be for fans. It'd be a good one.
Yeah.
But if you're Dustin, do you really want to take that?
He probably should fight Beneil. I mean, because Beneil's been getting denied for a long time as well. But yeah, I mean, I think the smart move for him is to probably wait till after February, which we did get that fight announced for February 11th, I believe, is when they got that scheduled for. So yeah, I mean that's a little bit of a long time to wait, and especially because usually you're going to have to wait at least 3 to 6 months after they fight in February. And he's never been known to be that guy. So I mean, if he can find some more action, I mean, who knows? Conor McGregor may pop up clamoring for a fourth fight again at some point in time. So we'll have to wait and see. I'm sure he's at least going to wait until February to see who wins before he makes the decision on what he's going to do next.
Yeah, fair assessment. All right, before we wrap this up, then let's get your knockout of the night. What was your favorite knockout? Because we've had loads. Obviously, knockout against. Dominic Reyes was obviously devastating. You had Chris Gutierrez with the knee against Frankie Edgar.
Yeah, I was about to say, I know you guys are Frankie Edgar guys, and as much as I love Frankie, that Gutierrez knockout by flying knee, and it almost takes its gusto away knowing that that's the second time that's happened to Frankie, and no one ever wants to see. I mean, it was one where you almost feel bad cheering for it because his family's there. It's his retirement fight. You want it. I mean, but MMA is not for fairy tales, and it is not your happy ending. It is a man's game.
Yep, the MMA gods are brutal, and they're never going to favor whatever decision you want. To be honest, it could go either.
Right.
All right, Preston, much appreciated for coming on the channel.
No, absolutely.
Any last wishes? Any channels you want to give before we wrap this up?
Yeah. We run a podcast every Wednesday called the Guys MMA Podcast. Check us out. We're on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, we're on all the social medias out there as the Guys MMA Podcast. Wednesdays are our release dates, so check us out.
Oof, love it, Preston. All right, we'll be in touch hopefully soon, or Ash will be in touch. He's on the communications and stuff with
That's right.
ATF. So we'll be in touch. We'll see you soon. And guys, if you've liked the video, don't forget to smack the like on button, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button as well. And stay tuned for everything we've got coming up on here on ATF. All right, nice one, Preston. We'll see you guys on the flip side. Good night. Take care.